The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive bowl carved from black stone. Thousands of seats rose in circular tiers, each one filled with alien beings from across the galaxy. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime as dozens of different languages mixed together into one loud mess of voices. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the small human section near the bottom of the hall. His blue uniform looked plain next to the colorful robes and armor worn by other species. Next to him, Lieutenant Amy Carter checked her datapad for the third time in 10 minutes. Her hands shook slightly as she read through the charges against humanity. At the center of the hall stood a tall crystal being with skin that looked like broken glass. Ambassador Kelvox of the Zephyrian Empire held a glowing tablet in his six-fingered hands. His voice cut through the noise like a sharp blade. The human species has shown time and again that they cannot control their violent nature, Kelvox said. His words echoed off the stone walls. In the past year alone, they have destroyed 3 entire pirate fleets. Not captured, not disabled, completely destroyed. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Jake could hear alien voices saying words like barbaric and savage. His jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. A floating jellyfish-like creature drifted down from the upper seats. This was Thessarian, the Altarian delegate. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes. The humans claimed they were protecting trade routes, but their methods go too far. They show no mercy to those who surrender. Amy leaned closer to Jake. "That's not true," she whispered. "The pirates never tried to surrender. They fought to the death." Jake put a hand on her arm to keep her quiet. He knew the truth would not matter here. The other species had already made up their minds. A massive bear-like alien with purple fur stood up in the Krillian section. "Humans are mad dogs," he growled. "They bite first and ask questions later. We should have caged them long ago." Laughter rippled through parts of the hall. Jake felt his face grow hot with anger. These aliens talked about humans like they were animals. They forgot that humanity had saved many of their worlds from real threats. Ambassador Kelvox raised his hand for silence. "The Galactic Council has reviewed all evidence. We have reached a decision about Earth's military forces." The hall went quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. "From this day forward," Kelvox announced, "human military ships are banned from all contested space. Earth's forces must stay within their own solar system. Any human warship found outside Earth space will be treated as a hostile threat." The alien delegates erupted in cheers and applause. Jake watched as beings from a dozen different worlds celebrated what they saw as a victory over human aggression. A small blue alien near the front turned to his companion. "Finally, we can have real peace in the galaxy," he said with a smile. Jake stood up slowly. The movement caught Kelvox's attention, and the Crystal Ambassador gestured for quiet. "Commander Morrison wishes to speak," Kelvox said. His tone suggested he was doing Jake a favor by allowing this. Jake looked around the hall at hundreds of alien faces. Most showed satisfaction or amusement. A few looked almost sorry for him. None showed respect. "The human government will comply with this decision," Jake said in a clear voice. "We will withdraw all military vessels to Earth space immediately." This seemed to surprise some of the delegates. They had expected him to argue or make threats. Kelvox nodded, with what looked like approval. Wisdom at last from the human representative. Jake sat back down as the aliens began discussing trade agreements and shipping routes. Amy stared at him with confusion. "That's it?" she whispered. "You're just going to accept this?" Before Jake could answer, his personal communicator vibrated against his wrist. The message was short and coded, but he understood it perfectly. It was from Admiral Lisa Brooks back on Earth. "Let them think they have won. Project Silent Thunder is ready for field testing." Jake deleted the message and looked up at the celebrating aliens. They thought they had solved the problem of human violence by simply forbidding humans from fighting. They had no idea what they had actually done. "Amy," Jake said quietly, "sometimes the best way to win a war is to let your enemy think they have already won." The Krillian ambassador was telling a joke about putting humans on a leash. The laughter that followed echoed through the great hall like thunder. Jake smiled for the first time since entering the council chamber. These aliens thought they understood warfare. They thought they understood humans. In the coming months, they would learn how wrong they were about both. As the council session continued, Jake noticed how relaxed the alien delegates had become. Without the threat of human intervention, they could go back to their old ways of fighting. Polite wars with rules and honor codes. Conflicts that dragged on for years because no one wanted to use too much force. The galaxy was about to become a much more dangerous place. The aliens just did not know it yet. When the session finally ended, Jake and Amy walked through the station corridors toward their transport ship. Other delegates passed them with smug looks and whispered comments. "How does it feel to be defanged?" asked a reptilian alien as he slithered past. Jake did not respond. He was thinking about Admiral Brooks and her team back on Earth. For 18 months, they had been working on something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. The aliens thought they had banned human warfare. What they had really done was give humanity time to perfect it. 6 months passed since the Galactic Council banned human military forces from contested space. The galaxy seemed quieter at first. Trade ships moved through the star lanes without fear of sudden human warship appearances. Alien diplomats spoke proudly of their new era of civilized conflict resolution. Captain Ron Hayes gripped the controls of his cargo ship New Horizon as red warning lights flashed across his control panel. 3 Vorthak raider ships had dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of him. The lizard-like pirates were known for their cruelty and their love of taking prisoners to sell as slaves. "This is Captain Hayes of the merchant vessel New Horizon," he said into his comm system. "I am carrying medical supplies to the colony on Kepler 7. Please allow me to pass." The response came as laser fire across his bow. Ron's shields flared but held. His cargo was worth millions of credits, but more importantly, the colonists on Kepler 7 were dying from a plague. Without his medical supplies, hundreds would die. "Surrender your ship and prepare to be boarded," came a harsh voice over the comm. "Resist and we will space you." Ron activated his emergency beacon. The signal would reach the Aquarian defense fleet stationed 3 systems away. Help should arrive within hours. Admiral Zenth received the distress call aboard his flagship, Ocean's Pride. The blue-skinned Aquarian studied the tactical display with his large silver eyes. His fleet consisted of 12 ships, all equipped with non-lethal weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. "Set course for the Kepler system," Admiral Zenth ordered, "and prepare the boarding pods." The Aquarian way of war focused on minimum casualties and maximum honor. Their energy weapons were designed to shut down enemy systems without causing hull breaches. Their boarding parties carried stun weapons and restraint devices instead of guns and explosives. When the Aquarian fleet arrived in the Kepler system, they found the New Horizon under attack by 5 Vorthak ships. The pirates had called for backup when they detected the approaching fleet. "Attention Vorthak vessels," Admiral Zenth broadcast. "You are committing acts of piracy in neutral space. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated according to galactic law." The lead Vorthak ship responded with a full missile barrage aimed at the Aquarian flagship. Admiral Zenth watched in shock as his shields took heavy damage from the first volley. "Return fire with minimum force," he ordered. "Target their engines only." The Aquarian weapons fired thin blue beams that should have disabled the enemy engines. Instead, the Vorthak ships shrugged off the attacks and continued firing. The pirates had upgraded their shields using stolen human technology from previous conflicts. Within an hour, 2 Aquarian ships were disabled and drifting. Admiral Zenth found himself surrounded by enemy vessels that showed no interest in following the rules of civilized warfare. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "they are demanding our surrender." Back on the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Kelvox watched the news reports with satisfaction. The Vorthak incident was being called a minor setback by most media outlets. No one mentioned that it was the 3rd such defeat for Confederation forces in the past month. "Perhaps now the galaxy will see that peace comes through wisdom and restraint," Kelvox told a gathering of reporters. "Not through human savagery." The Crystal Ambassador had become something of a celebrity since the human ban. Other species saw him as the leader who had finally brought order to the galaxy. He gave speeches about the new age of enlightened warfare. "Humans solve every problem with violence," he continued. "We have shown that there is a better way." On Earth, Admiral Lisa Brooks sat in her office deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Banks of monitors showed news feeds from across the galaxy. Every report of pirate attacks, every failed Confederation intervention, every alien defeat was being recorded and analyzed. "The pattern is clear," said Colonel Pete Williams as he entered the room. "Criminal activity has increased by 300% since the ban. The other species cannot handle threats without overwhelming force." Admiral Brooks nodded without taking her eyes off the screens. "How is Project Silent Thunder progressing?" "Dr. Helen Price reports that Phase 1 testing is complete," Colonel Williams replied. "The psychological warfare protocols are ready. Captain Nick Foster's team has finished their training." On one of the monitors, Admiral Brooks could see footage of another failed rescue mission. A Krillian fleet had tried to stop slavers in the Outer Rim and had been completely destroyed. The bear-like aliens who had called humans mad dogs now found themselves helpless against enemies who did not follow their rules of honor. Dr. Helen Price entered the room carrying a thick file of reports. The head of psychological warfare looked tired but excited. "Admiral, our analysis shows that the alien species have become dangerously overconfident," she said. "They think the ban on human forces means they no longer need to worry about real threats." "What about their military capabilities?" Admiral Brooks asked. "Declining rapidly," Dr. Price replied. "Without the pressure of competing against human tactical innovation, they have become lazy. Their weapons are outdated, their strategies are predictable, and their soldiers are not prepared for actual combat." Admiral Brooks stood and walked to the large window that looked out over the training facility. Below, she could see the next generation of human warriors practicing with equipment that made their previous weapons look like toys. "The galaxy wanted to ban human warfare," she said quietly. "They are about to learn what human warfare looks like when we have had time to perfect it." Commander Sarah Bell appeared on one of the comm screens. She was calling from the space dock where the new ships were being completed. "Admiral, the Phantom's Edge is ready for deployment," she reported. "Captain Foster and his crew are standing by for orders." Admiral Brooks smiled for the first time in months. The alien species thought they had won by banning human military operations. They had no idea that they had given humanity the greatest gift possible: time to evolve. "Tell Captain Foster to prepare for departure," she ordered. "It is time to remind the galaxy why they feared us in the first place." On the news feeds, more reports came in of alien defeats and criminal victories. Pirates who had once fled at the first sign of human ships now attacked Confederation fleets with confidence. The galaxy was becoming more dangerous every day. The aliens had mocked the idea that humans were necessary for galactic peace. Soon, they would discover that human military might had been the only thing keeping the truly dangerous predators in check. The age of polite warfare was ending. The age of human precision was about to begin. The Phantom's Edge drifted through the void like a shadow made real. No sensors could detect her. No radar could find her. To the universe, she simply did not exist. Captain Nick Foster stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship, watching the tactical display show empty space where his vessel should appear. "Status report," Captain Foster said quietly. Lieutenant Kate Johnson looked up from her console. "All stealth systems are operating perfectly, sir. We are invisible to every known detection method in the galaxy." The ship was smaller than the massive battlecruisers that had once announced human presence throughout the galaxy. Only 50 crew members operated the Phantom's Edge, but each one represented the absolute best of human military training. They had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. "Target system coming into view," reported Navigation Officer Dan Clark. "The hegemony of Solth has 37 ships holding position around the third planet." Captain Foster studied the enemy formation through the ship's advanced sensors. The Solth had been expanding into neutral space for months, enslaving primitive species and strip-mining their worlds. 3 different Confederation fleets had tried to stop them and failed. The aliens were calling it the Solth problem in their diplomatic meetings. "What do we know about their recent activities?" Captain Foster asked. Dr. Emma Stone, the ship's expert on alien species, pulled up her reports. "They have enslaved the population of 4 worlds in the past month. Their latest target is a peaceful farming colony that has no military defenses. The Confederation tried to negotiate, but the Solth laughed at their diplomats." The Solth were reptilian beings who valued strength above everything else. Their culture taught that weak species deserved to be enslaved. They saw the Confederation's attempts at peaceful resolution as proof that the galaxy had grown soft. "The Aquarian fleet tried to stop them last week," Lieutenant Johnson added. "The Solth destroyed 6 ships and took the survivors prisoner. Admiral Zenth barely escaped with his life." Captain Foster nodded grimly. The same Admiral Zenth who had once called humans barbaric was now discovering what real barbarity looked like. The Solth did not fight with honor or follow rules. They simply took what they wanted and killed anyone who stood in their way. "Begin observation phase," Captain Foster ordered. "I want to know everything about their operations before we act." For 72 hours, the Phantom's Edge watched the Solth fleet. The humans studied patrol patterns, identified command ships, and mapped every weakness in the enemy formation. They listened to Solth communications and learned about their commanders' personalities and tactics. The Solth believed they were unbeatable. Their ships were heavily armored and carried weapons that could punch through any known defense. Their warriors were trained from birth to fight and die for the glory of their empire. They had never lost a battle in living memory. "Analysis complete," Dr. Stone reported on the 3rd day. "The Solth fleet follows predictable patterns. Their commander, War Chief Grashk, prefers direct confrontation. He sees subtlety as weakness and considers any enemy who uses stealth to be a coward." "Perfect," Captain Foster said with a cold smile. "Then he will never see us coming." Lieutenant Johnson pulled up the tactical plan they had developed. "Sir, we can disable their entire fleet without destroying a single ship. Their shield generators are poorly protected, and their weapon systems have obvious weak points." "What about casualties?" Captain Foster asked. "Minimal if we do this right," Dr. Stone replied. "The Solth value strength, but they also respect enemies who defeat them completely. If we show them overwhelming superiority, they should surrender rather than fight to the death." Captain Foster looked at his crew. These 50 men and women represented 18 months of human military evolution. The galaxy had banned human forces, thinking they were too violent. What the aliens had really done was give humanity time to become something far more dangerous than violent. They had become precise. "All stations, prepare for Operation Silent Thunder," Captain Foster announced. "Remember, we are not here to destroy the enemy. We are here to demonstrate that human warfare has evolved beyond their understanding." The Phantom's Edge moved into position behind the Solth flagship, Destroyer of Worlds. The massive enemy ship was 3 times larger than the human vessel, with enough firepower to level a city. Its crew of 500 warriors had never known defeat. Beginning Phase 1, Lieutenant Johnson reported. The first sign of trouble for the Salth came when their flagship's shields simply disappeared. One moment they were fully powered, the next moment they were gone. War Chief Grashk screamed orders at his crew, but no one could explain what had happened. Then the weapon systems went offline. Every gun, every missile launcher, every defensive system shut down simultaneously. The mighty destroyer of worlds had become helpless in less than 10 seconds. "What is happening?" War Chief Grashk roared as his bridge crew scrambled to restore power. Before anyone could answer, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, but it was too late. The ship's communications were dead, its engines were offline, and its crew was trapped in the dark. Across the fleet, the same thing happened to every Salt vessel. In less than 6 minutes, 37 warships had been reduced to floating hulks. Not one shot had been fired. Not one explosion had occurred. The ships were simply dead. War Chief Grashk was still trying to understand what had happened when bright lights suddenly filled his bridge. A voice spoke in perfect Salt from speakers that should not have been working. "War Chief Grashk, this is Captain Foster of the Earth vessel Phantom's Edge. Your fleet has been disabled. Your crew is unharmed. You have 60 seconds to order a complete surrender, or we will demonstrate what happens when humans stop being polite." The Salth commander looked around his darkened bridge with growing terror. He could not see the enemy. His sensors showed nothing. His weapons were useless. For the first time in his life, War Chief Grashk faced an opponent he could not fight. "I surrender," he said quietly into the darkness. Throughout the fleet, similar surrenders came from every ship. The proud Salth warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves helpless before an enemy they could not even detect. Captain Foster allowed himself a small smile as the surrenders came in. The galaxy thought it had banned human warfare. What they had really done was force humanity to perfect the art of war itself. The recording systems aboard the Phantom's Edge captured every moment of the operation against the Salth fleet. Multiple cameras tracked the action from different angles, while advanced sensors recorded data that would amaze military analysts across the galaxy. Lieutenant Dan Clark sat at his communication station, preparing the footage for transmission to Earth. "Sir, all recording systems show perfect clarity," he reported to Captain Foster. "Every detail of the operation has been documented." Captain Foster nodded as he watched the playback on the main screen. The footage showed something unprecedented in galactic warfare. No massive explosions, no desperate battles, no heroic last stands. Instead, it showed surgical precision that disabled an entire enemy fleet without firing a single destructive shot. The most powerful moment came at the end. War Chief Grashk, the feared Salth commander who had terrorized dozens of worlds, knelt before Captain Foster in the flagship's cargo bay. But he was not kneeling in defeat. The expression on the reptilian warrior's face showed something much more complex: respect. "Commander Grace Parker will want to analyze this footage immediately," Captain Foster said. "Make sure she gets a complete copy of everything." Back on Earth, Commander Parker received the transmission in her secure facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. Her intelligence team gathered around the massive display screen as the footage began to play. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about human military capabilities. "Freeze it there," Commander Parker said, as the recording showed a single human soldier boarding a Salth ship. The soldier moved through the enemy corridors like a dancer, disarming 5 Salth warriors without killing any of them. Each movement was perfectly calculated to neutralize the threat while preserving life. "How is this possible?" asked intelligence analyst Mike Chen. "Those Salth warriors are 3 times stronger than humans. They train for combat from childhood." Dr. Emma Stone's voice came through the comm system from the Phantom's Edge. "The key is understanding their psychology. Salth warriors are trained to fight opponents who match their strength with strength. They have no experience dealing with precision and speed. The footage continued, showing the human boarding teams moving through the disabled Salth ships. They did not destroy equipment or harm prisoners. Instead, they gathered intelligence, provided medical aid to injured enemies, and secured the ships with minimal force. Commander Parker paused the recording at another crucial moment. The Phantom's edge appeared on screen like a ghost materializing from empty space. The ship's stealth technology was so advanced that it seemed to violate the laws of physics. "The Galactic Council needs to see this," she said quietly, "but not as a threat. We present this as documentation of a police action taken to protect innocent civilians." Dr. Helen Price joined the briefing via video link from her psychological warfare laboratory. "The alien species banned us because they feared our violence. This footage shows that we have evolved beyond violence into something they cannot understand: controlled force." The final scenes of the recording showed Captain Foster helping War Chief Grashk to his feet after accepting the Salth surrender. The gesture lasted only seconds, but its meaning would echo through the galaxy. The humans had shown mercy to an enemy who had shown none to others. "This single image will change everything," Dr. Price continued. "The aliens think they understand human nature. They see us as savage warriors who solve problems through destruction. This footage proves that we have become something far more sophisticated." Commander Parker studied the data accompanying the video. 0 human casualties, 0 unnecessary alien casualties. 37 enemy ships disabled in 6 hours. An entire slave operation shut down without a single death. The numbers told a story that no amount of alien propaganda could counter. "What about the rescued prisoners?" she asked. Captain Foster's voice came through the comm. "We freed over 10,000 slaves from the Salth ships. All of them have been given medical treatment and safe passage home. The Salth crews have also been treated according to galactic law." The contrast was stunning. The Salth had enslaved innocent civilians and destroyed anyone who opposed them. The humans had defeated the Salth completely while showing compassion to both the rescued slaves and the captured enemies. Admiral Lisa Brooks arrived at the facility as the briefing continued. She had flown in from Colorado to see the footage personally. Her expression remained neutral as she watched the recording, but her eyes showed deep satisfaction. "How long before the Galactic Council receives this?" she asked. "The transmission is ready now," Commander Parker replied. "We can send it immediately, or we can wait for the right moment." Admiral Brooks considered the options. The alien species were still celebrating their success in banning human military operations. They believed they had solved the galaxy's violence problem by removing humans from the equation. This footage would shatter that illusion completely. "Send it during their next trade session," she decided. "Let them see what real peacekeeping looks like while they are discussing shipping routes and tariff agreements." The recording was compressed into a standard galactic format and prepared for transmission. No commentary was added, no explanation was provided. The images would speak for themselves. Commander Parker added one final element to the package, a simple data file showing the results of the operation. Slaves freed, 10,247, enemy ships destroyed, 0, human casualties, 0, unnecessary alien casualties, 0, mission time, 6 hours, 14 minutes. "The Galactic Council wanted to see civilized warfare," Admiral Brooks said as she watched the final preparations. "Now they will see what civilization looks like when it has learned to fight." The transmission was sent without fanfare. No diplomatic channels were used. No advance warnings were given. The footage simply appeared in the Galactic Council's communication system as documentation of recent events in the Salth territories. Within hours, the recording would reach every major government in the galaxy. Alien military leaders would study every second of the footage, trying to understand how humans had achieved such overwhelming tactical superiority. Diplomats would debate the implications of human military evolution. But first, the footage would play before the assembled delegates of the Galactic Council during their routine weekly meeting. The same aliens who had mocked human barbarity would watch in silence as humans demonstrated the difference between violence and precision, between destruction and control, between fear and respect. The galaxy was about to learn that banning human warfare had not eliminated it. It had perfected it. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with the usual sounds of routine business. Ambassador Kelvok stood at his designated speaking platform, discussing trade route security in his sharp, crystalline voice. The weekly session had drawn a smaller crowd than usual, with many delegates focusing on data pads rather than the proceedings. The elimination of human military interference has brought unprecedented peace to our shipping lanes, Kelvox was saying. Piracy incidents have decreased by 12% in the core worlds. He did not mention that piracy had increased by over 300% in the outer territories. The core worlds were safe because they had heavy Confederation naval presence. The frontier colonies were being abandoned to their fate. The large central display screen flickered to life without warning. Admiral Zenth looked up from his reports, expecting to see shipping charts or trade statistics. Instead, he saw the black hull of a ship that seemed to absorb light itself. "What is this?" asked the Krillian delegate, his purple fur bristling with confusion. The footage began to play. No introduction was given. No explanation was provided. The assembled aliens watched as the Phantom's edge materialized from empty space like a ghost becoming solid. Ambassador Kelvok stopped speaking mid-sentence. His crystal features reflected the light from the screen as he stared at what appeared to be impossible technology. Stealth systems that advanced should not exist outside of theoretical physics. The recording showed the Salth fleet in perfect formation around their target world. 37 warships that had defeated 3 Confederation forces in the past month. Ships that carried enough firepower to destroy entire space stations. Then the ships began to go dark. One by one, the mighty Salth vessels lost their shields, their weapons, their power systems. The process was so smooth and systematic that it looked like a planned shutdown rather than an attack. No explosions marked the deaths of the enemy ships. They simply stopped working. "How many human ships are attacking them?" whispered the Altarian delegate, her jellyfish-like form pulsing with nervous energy. The answer became clear as the footage continued. Only one human ship was visible, and it had appeared behind the Salth flagship as if it had been there all along. The Phantom's edge looked tiny next to the massive Destroyer of Worlds, but size clearly meant nothing in this engagement. Admiral Zenth felt his blue skin grow pale as he recognized the tactical implications. The humans had not overpowered the Salth fleet. They had simply turned it off. Every shot had been precisely placed to disable rather than destroy. Every action had served a specific purpose. The most shocking moment came when the footage showed human soldiers boarding the Salth ships. The assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as individual humans moved through enemy corridors like flowing water. Each encounter with Salth warriors ended the same way. The reptilian fighters were disarmed and subdued without being harmed. "This is impossible," growled the Krillian ambassador. "Salth warriors are 3 times stronger than humans. They have natural armor and enhanced reflexes." But the evidence was undeniable. The humans did not try to match Salth strength with strength. Instead, they used speed, precision, and an understanding of alien psychology that seemed almost supernatural. The footage reached its climax as War Chief Grashk surrendered his entire fleet to Captain Foster. The Salth commander, who had never known defeat, knelt before the human captain with an expression that combined respect and awe. Then came the moment that would haunt alien military leaders for years to come. Captain Foster extended his hand to help the defeated enemy leader to his feet. The gesture lasted only seconds, but it spoke volumes about human evolution in warfare. When the recording ended, the council chamber remained absolutely silent. Thousands of alien delegates sat without moving, trying to process what they had just witnessed. This was not the brutal human warfare they had feared and banned. This was something far more terrifying, human warfare that had evolved beyond their comprehension. Ambassador Kelvox found his voice first, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. How many ships did the humans lose in this operation? Commander Jake Morrison rose slowly from his seat in the human section, the same seat where he had accepted the military ban 6 months earlier. Every eye in the chamber turned toward him. "None," he said in a clear voice that carried to every corner of the hall. "0 human casualties. 0 unnecessary alien casualties. The Salt Fleet was disabled, and their crews were provided with medical care and safe passage home." The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. The alien species had banned humanity from warfare because they considered humans too violent. Now they realized that humans had used their isolation to perfect the art of controlled force. Admiral Zenth stood on shaking legs. His voice cracked as he asked the question that everyone was thinking. "Is this what human warfare has become?" Jake looked around the chamber at the faces that had once mocked humanity's supposed barbarism. He saw fear now instead of amusement, respect instead of contempt. The delegates who had laughed at the idea of caging mad dogs now understood that they had caged something far more dangerous than rabid animals. "No," Jake said quietly. "This is what human warfare was becoming before you banned us from practicing it. This is what happens when the most dangerous species in the galaxy has 18 months to think about how to be better at what we do." The silence stretched on for several minutes. Finally, the Thessarian delegate asked, "How many more ships like the Phantom's Edge does Earth possess?" Jake smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "That information is classified under Earth's new military doctrine. You will have to ask our admirals when you formally request our assistance." Ambassador Kelvox's crystal features seemed to crack slightly as he processed this. "Request assistance? The ban is still in effect. Earth forces are forbidden from operating outside your solar system." "The ban remains in place," Jake agreed. "We will continue to honor it completely. Our military forces will not leave Earth space unless formally invited by the Galactic Council." The chamber erupted in whispered conversations as delegates realized their predicament. They had banned the only force capable of dealing with threats like the Salth Empire. Without human intervention, the galaxy's criminal elements would continue to grow bolder and more dangerous. The Krillian ambassador who had called humans mad dogs now looked like a frightened cub. But what about the pirates, the slavers? The Salth Empire still has thousands of ships. Jake shrugged. "Those are problems for the Confederation to solve. Earth will continue to respect the Council's decision to ban our military operations." As the implications sank in, delegates began to file out of the chamber in groups. Conversations in dozens of languages filled the corridors as alien governments tried to figure out how to deal with threats they could not handle alone. Ambassador Kelvox remained at his podium long after most delegates had left. He stared at the darkened display screen where the footage had played. Finally, he activated his personal communicator and began composing a message to Earth. It was a formal request for the Galactic Council to reconsider its previous decision regarding Earth's military operations and to seek guidance on modern conflict resolution techniques. The message was sent, but never received a reply. Humanity had proven its point. The galaxy would have to swallow its pride and ask properly if it wanted human protection again. The age of alien mockery was over. The age of human respect had begun.